Okay, we're going to talk about inverse functions. So something called inverse functions. So we're going to start off with the function f of x equals 2x plus 1. And we're just going to fill out a table of values for it. So we're going to have assigned these values of x, and we're going to plug it in and figure out what the values of y are. So in particular, 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, plus 1 is negative 1. 2 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is, that's going to give us 3. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And that's a line, not terribly exciting. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to take these values of y and I'm going to make those our new values of x for this function over here. And this is not a randomly selected function, so g of x is not random. It's one I carefully decided in advance because when we plug things in, something happens. So we plug in negative 3 into x over here, we get minus 3 subtract 1 is negative 4, and negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. If we put in a minus 1, negative 1 minus 1 is actually negative 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 5 minus 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2. So what happens is, it actually, if you look, this function over here seems to undo whatever this one did like that. So f of x and g of x are not just random functions. What they are is they are inverses of each other. So what they do is they kind of reverse it, right? If we have essentially, right, let's say we started off with minus 2 minus 1. Well, I'm not going to have room for it. But minus 2 becomes minus 3. That becomes minus 1. 0 becomes 1. And one maps to the other. So one function brings you one way, one brings you the other way. And we're going to have a special notation for that. And so the special notation is going to be f to the minus 1x. And we say that this is the inverse of x, and this is called the inverse, not of x, of f, or the inverse function. And this is not an exponent. Not an exponent. It looks like an exponent, but kind of like, this is like kind of like the inverse sine type thing, where you may or may not recall that from previous years. This is not an actual exponent either. This is the opposite, the inverse function of sine. That's essentially what this minus 1 here also means. It means it's a inverse notation. And so what we have is, we have our f of x, and then you have your f to the minus 1 of x. And that's the inverse function. And what it does is, essentially, as we saw over there, if you have one function that goes from x to y, then the inverse function brings you back the other way.